In today's episode, I want to talk to you about several very important files in Run8 and explain to you what they do. We're going to be talking about the traffic, AI traffic file, your industry configuration, your world saves, train saves, and extra board saves, and finally, the AI special locations. We're going to start with the traffic file. So I'm currently in my Run8 Train Simulator V3 folder on the hard drive. And I'm going to go into content, and then I'm going to go into V3 routes, and then regions, because your traffic pertains to specific regions. So for this example, I'm going to go into Southern California, and you'll see here traffic. The traffic file in Run8 is not editable. You can't double click it and open it up in a regular text editor. It won't work. It's a coded file. But now I'm going to show you what it actually does. And if I hit Shift F2 and I open up the AI Trains menu and I go to AI Traffic Generation, and then I click over here on Spawn Points, here's all of our spawn points. And if, for example, I do Seligman and hit Train Types and then select any of these, let's go with Mixed Containers, hit Train Symbols. This is what's considered your traffic, all these train symbols and all these options that you have selected here in green on the right. So all this data, all these train symbols and these selections I have for each train are saved in that traffic file. You can see here if I scroll through each one, they all have slightly different settings, maybe different tags, different engines and railroad types, liveries. And this is all what I configured, each one of these. So this could look very different on your game. So if I go back and I go into unit oil again, here's a bunch more symbols. All these symbols are saved in that traffic file. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of the simulator, and I'm going to grab this traffic file, and I'm going to move it. I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to move it temporarily just to my desktop. And you can see now here at the bottom, there's no longer a traffic file. So what happens if I boot up Run8 now without having even any file in there? Let's find out. And you can see here, all of our custom settings for spawning AI traffic is reset to default because it was saved in that traffic file. If I go to spawn points, look at now all the sliders. Basically everything's reset because there was no traffic file when we booted it up because we moved it out of Run8 onto my desktop. So I can click any of these and go in here, but you're going to see everything's reset and you got no train symbols. So you could see how critical it is to back things up like your traffic file, because if you actually permanently lost it, you would have lost hours, maybe days worth of, putting in all your settings of all the different train symbols that you wanted to save to spawn. You'd have to redo it all. Now, if you wanted to create a second or third or fifth custom traffic file, then maybe you want to move your file, back it up, and put it in a different location, and then boot up Run8 without a file in there, so that you can start with a fresh one and make a different one. So maybe you want to have traffic for like a era of like the early 2000s and have specific trains for that era. And then maybe you want to create another traffic file that you can load up that would have trains that are current to the current year, 2025. So now if you look at the bottom there in the Southern California region folder, you're going to see the traffic file is back. Run8, when I loaded it up, it automatically created a blank file or a base file with just a few little default details. Now, if I want to go back to my original traffic file with all of my custom train symbols, I can paste it into here, and I'm going to get this warning. Replace the file in the destination. I'm going to hit yes. That's what I want to do. And now you can see it went from 10 kilobytes up to 47 kilobytes. So you know that it's the file with all the different symbols. So in order for my custom traffic file to now take effect now that I just pasted it back into the Southern California region folder. I need to exit Run8, exit back to the main menu or exit the sim, but you don't have to. You can exit back to the main menu and then reload one of your saves. And then now you can see on the AI trains menu, we're back to the custom settings on this page that I had before. And if I go into my spawn points, you can see all the sliders are back. We're basically just back because I put my file back in. And if I go back here to Seligman and I go to mixed containers, you're going to see here's all these symbols. So you can take that file out and you can put it back. But if you lose it, it's bad news. So the next file that I want to talk about is the AISpecialLocations file. And if I open up the AI trains menu by hitting Shift F2 in Run8, we're back to this screen we were just looking at. And if I click spawn points, all of these spawn points that you see in this list are saved in the AISpecialLocations file. Now the difference between the traffic file and the AISpecialLocations files is that the AISpecialLocation file is particular to specific subdivisions, not the entire region. So each subdivision in that region is going to have its own AISpecialLocations file containing your spawn points. So we're back here in the Southern California region folder, but we're not going to find our AISpecialLocations file in here. What we need to go do is go back to regions, go back again to V3 routes. And now, if I click, for example, on this Barstow Yermo, you're going to see the second, it's always the second file, AISpecialLocations. And it's a R8 file. So it's, again, this is one that you can only edit within the sim. You cannot edit it inside of a text editor. If I go back to routes and let's say I open up Mojave sub, again, up here, you're going to see AISpecialLocations for Mojave. So it's basically saving spawn points in that specific subdivision, that specific, maybe even DLC if you want to call it. So if I go with like, here's Roseville, because I have the NorCal, again, up here at the top, AISpecialLocations, that's particular just to the Roseville subdivision. Let's try the Seligman spawn point for an example. So we know that this is in the Seligman DLC, the Seligman subdivision, this spawn point. So what I'm going to try doing is I'm going to exit to the main menu. I'm going to open up the Seligman subfolder here under routes. And then I'm going to cut the special locations file for Seligman, and I'm going to move it to my desktop temporarily. So now you can see there is no AISpecialLocations file in the Seligman subfolder. Now, let's go back to Run8. I'm going to do Shift F2, and we've got our spawn points open, and look at that. Nothing for Seligman. Remember, it was down here near the bottom? But the other ones are still there, because remember, those pertain to their subdivision, that DLC. So they're in their own folder, though we didn't delete those. We just got rid of the Seligman one temporarily, and you can see now that it's no longer in the list. And now I'm back in the Explorer, File Explorer, and if I open up the Seligman subfolder again, you can see that it didn't automatically create a new AISpecialLocations file yet. Now back in Run8, if I place a new spawn point in Seligman, and I'll show in another tutorial video more about how to create custom spawn points. But for this example, I just want to show you how I just created a new one in Seligman, and now look at this back in the Seligman subfolder, you can see right there, we got an AISpecialLocations file. It created a new file automatically but we had to at least create one spawn point for it to automatically create that file. So now I'm going to put my original file back. So everything will be back to normal. And if I go to my spawn points, you'll see at the bottom here, now it's back. Although the slider is now at 0. That's interesting. Let's see what happens if I go into here. So it saved all of these sliders, and all my train symbols are still there because those are in the traffic file. But it did reset this slider. Not a big deal. I just have to do that. So if you were to somehow lose those files or overwrite your files and didn't have them backed up, your AI special locations for all your regions, you would lose all these custom spawn points. You wouldn't lose all the traffic. You'd still have those saved in your traffic file, but you'd have to go around your map and create all new spawn points again and label them. Now we're going to take a look at your industry configuration, the config file. And this file is also particular to the specific region. It contains all of the information for all of the industries that you have on your map for that region. If I open up our industry list and click on industry configuration, this is all the industries for Southern California. And this data is what's saved in that config file. Now you'll notice at the top right, export industry configuration. If I click that, you'll notice in the top left of the screen, it says file written. It's not really a lot of information for you. It doesn't really let you know what's going on. So I'm going to show you right now. If we go back to our file explorer, we're in the Southern California region, and now at the bottom, you can see an industry configuration.csv file. So now I've got that CSV file opened in Excel, and this is what it looks like when you first open it. And if I go ahead here and expand all the columns, you can see here it's going to show you all the same stuff that you can see on the Run 8 screen here, all these industries. But it puts it into this very, very handy Excel sheet that you can then use for your own reference. But however, to my knowledge, you can't, I'm pretty positive you cannot then re-import this Excel spreadsheet, any changes you made. You have to make the changes inside of Run 8. But you can utilize the spreadsheet to build trains or search for data on all your industries and you can add columns. I'll show you that in later tutorials, handy things you can do here. I'm just on the new Fresno Modesto subdivision, and you can see all these red dots and these tags here. These are all the industry tracks, and this is also saved in your industry configuration file, all these tracks. And these are your industries. So like if I went into PLP, Plastipack 77 Modesto, PLP takes plastic pellet hoppers, and here's all the tags. So this is all the same data that we just saw in that spreadsheet that I exported to the spreadsheet. And this is what's saved in your config file. So you can see if you lost that industry config file with all those industries and all these tracks assigned, to manually have to go back in and do that would be an incredible amount of work. And you wouldn't actually have to do that because the depot website offers for download their own industry configuration for all the regions. So you could just implement theirs, which is very handy. But if you could have spent years playing this game and customizing the industries the way that you wanted. And if you permanently lost that, you would not be too happy about it. So it's very important to back it up. So we don't need this CSV file anymore. I can delete that out of here. And then what I want to show you is the same thing that we did with the traffic file, where we moved it out of here and put it on the desktop. So now I've removed the configuration, industry configuration file from my Southern California region, and it's backed up. So as soon as I exit, I'll go to the main menu, and now I'm going to relaunch, and without a industry configuration file in this Southern California region. So we're back in, and if I open up the industry list, everything's gone. No, the industry cars, the configuration, all those industries are gone. And you're not going to find industry tags on anything because there aren't any, because they were in that file. So there's no red track showing up. So if you wanted to, it's the same thing as what we just did with your traffic file. If you wanted to generate a brand new from scratch industry configuration for your route, then you would want to do this. You'd want to back up your good one, put it somewhere else, start Run 8 without one, and then when you start creating industries, it'll automatically create a file. I just very quickly created just a dummy industry, and then it saved it in Run 8 in the sim. And now looking back here at the Southern California folder, you can see it already auto-generated. So it's kind of like the spawn points with the AI special locations. You have to create at least one industry, and then Run 8 will automatically create a new industry file. So now I've got my original industry configuration file back in the Southern California region folder. And now I'm going to launch Run 8 again, and you'll see that it'll just be back to how it was with all my industries. And if I open up the industry list, we're right back to where we started. All the tracks will be labeled with the dots so you know where to park the cars. So it's as if nothing changed. So you can switch out your industry configurations. Maybe somebody else you know made a custom one and they want to share it with you, or you made one that you want to share with a friend. It's just a small file. You could just email it to them, and that quickly they could just drop it in. Make sure they back up their original, their own one, just in case. But yeah, then you can just drop in another one, such as the depots or a friend's, and utilize what they did. The last file types that I want to talk about today are your world save files, and then train saves and extra board saves. If I press F1 and open up the load save menu, for simplicity here, I erased all my other ones or moved them out. So you just see I have one here, world save example. And then under train, I've got a train save example, and then extra board, an extra board example. So I'm going to start with world save. And if I click this, and then at the bottom hit load, and put the messages back on, you'll see it says placing train. So a world save saves all the trains exactly where they were when you hit F1 and save a world save. It just takes a snapshot of the world, and it remembers all of the switches where all of the trains are located, where you were located at that time, the date and time, the weather. Actually, the weather, it doesn't remember, I don't believe, because it'll auto-generate custom weather every time you play, based also on the seasons too. But it remembers the date and time, and you can see how all these trains now are populating in, and it's still loading more. All that train data is in an XML file, which is your world save file. So now you can see here at Barstow Yard that all the trains have been finished loading, and we're ready to play. So now let's take a look at the actual file and see what's in the world save. In order to find your world save file, you're going to go to your Run 8 Train Simulator V3 main folder. You're going to click on Content. You're going to go to Routes, Regions, and then we're Southern California, and then Trains. Now, the interesting thing is you'll see there's actually 6 files here. Our world save example right here, there's an XML file and an info file. But you'll also see my train save example is in here, and also the extra board example. If we go back to Run 8 and open up the load save menu with F1, you'll see it's separated here under World tab, Train tab, and Extra Board tab. Those 3 saves. But back in our Explorer, they're all in the trains folder for that region. So that's just how it works. So if you have a lot of trains, a lot of extra board saves, and several world saves, they're all going to be mixed in this one folder, and it's going to be a little bit trickier for you to find the file, but that's where they are. They're all in there in the trains folder. So let's go ahead and open up this world save example XML file. And you can see here we've got a train list. So the train list, this is all your trains and all the detail, like if it was AI or not, where it was located, and the specific unit, every car. So this is a massive list because it's every single train that you had on the map. And you could have thousands of freight cars and freight locomotives on the map at any one time. So it's a massive amount of data in the world save. And then you've got your flag list. So this is all any MOW, maintenance away flags that you might have planted. It's going to keep track of exactly where those were. Your camera position and rotation from when you saved. So it loads you up in the exact spot where you were when you saved it. You've got your date. And then over here, you've got signals. So it's going to save every single signal on the map and whether were they showing green, were they approach, any of that, it's going to remember it. And if I go back to run 8 real quick and open up the dispatch screen, you're going to see I haven't turned on the AI dispatcher yet. But if I go to needles here, look at all these green lights. So the world saved all the lights, what they were when you saved it. So these trains, when they get to the end here to the red, they're going to stop because the auto dispatcher is not enabled. So they'll eventually stop. But this routing that you're seeing here is tracked in the world save. So if we go back in here to the file, that's all under here under the signals. And then let's see, switches. We have switches. So every single switch, it's going to keep track all the manual switches and CTC switches, all of that stuff. Let's collapse that. We've got all our industry status. So every single industry, these are all the industries and whether or not there's cars dropped off. So if you drop a car at an industry to be processed, it's going to have a timestamp in here. And that's how it keeps track of what cars were and tagging them and how many hours they've been at that industry. That's all going to be in here as well. And then, as you can see, that's the end. So the world save is a massive file, and it just keeps track of all that. So when you reload a world save, you're back as if time was frozen. You're right back to where you started. If I open the F1 load save menu and I do train save, this is only going to be one specific train that I saved. So if I, oh, you know what? From here, I can load it into the consist editor. So this was a train that I had saved, just a few boxcars. And then I can place it if I wanted on an empty track like that. I can load it into the consist editor, overwrite it, or spawn it. So if I hit spawn, it's going to spawn where I originally saved it, which was over here at by the riverbank yard, these 3 cars. That's where I originally saved these cars. And then if I exit back to the main menu, now, since we're starting from scratch, if I load up this train save, watch what happens. Those 3 boxcars, watch this. It's only going to load that specific train, just those 3 boxcars. And if I go to the left, top left, and go to down here, you'll see total units in world. There's only 3. So it didn't load any of all those other trains. I had probably several thousand on the map in that previous scene we were just in, because that was a world save. This is only a train save. So now this riverbank yard is empty. We were just there and we saw some trains were there, but now it's empty. And that's all that's here is just these 3 cars. And your train save file is obviously going to be way smaller because all it's keeping track of is where you were and when you saved it and the 3 specific cars and what track they were on, and that's it. And then the extra board, that's just a specific location. So if I come over here and look at these work trucks and I open up the load save menu and I overwrite this current extra board example, you see it saved it at the top. And now it's just the only data in the extra board save file is going to be your specific location. And if I go back to explore here, here's the extra board example at the top, and here's that new train save we just did at the bottom. It created new files there. And if I open up the extra board example, you can see it's tiny. That's all it is, just the coordinates for your camera. And if we go back to run 8 and I just go way up in the sky and then I hit F1 and I load this extra board example, it brings me right to the spot where I did the save. So it's just a way of saving locations. Whether you've been playing Run 8 for several years now, or maybe you're just starting, I hope this video helps just provide a little bit better understanding as to what those files mean, how important they are, and what kind of data they are saving, and what you can do with them. Thanks for watching.